Hi, everybody. Welcome to Chatham University's Keep the Muscles Moving programming for this fall. My name, if you don't know me, is Sheila Squilanti. I am the director of the program, and I am delighted to bring you another installment of this, which is called Writing the Pictures with Dory Perry, who's going to take it away in a second. But first, I'm going to share a little bit about Dory with you. Dory is a musician, a writer, and a filmmaker with a particular interest in the power of storytelling as a hearing and integrative practice. She has worked as a producer, editor, and writer on museum films and installations, as well as independent feature films. She's currently working on a TV series pilot, completing a feature-length script, and about to begin pre-production on her second experimental short film. Originally from Miami, she now lives in Pittsburgh, where she also works in higher education. So we're so pleased to have Dory with us, and I'm so excited for this workshop. Please share your faces if you wish. Of course, you can keep your camera off. That's fine too. And there will be opportunities to ask Dory questions, and she'll explain that as we go. Okay, Dory, it's all yours.
Great, thanks. Welcome, everybody. I'm really glad you guys were able to make the time to be here tonight. I'm super excited. I love screenwriting, so I'm always happy to talk about it, happy to connect with other writers. I don't know what your level of experience with it is. I don't know if you have any experience at all, but you won't really need it for this particular workshop. Seems like you're all pretty savvy about the muting thing, so I won't have to do any housekeeping talk that way, but yeah, so I always like to think of things like this as sort of a, of all the people out there, this particular group of people, like a flock of birds, we've all sort of landed on this tree for 90 minutes and we'll have this shared experience and then we'll kind of fly off, but I'm hoping that we can have some fun with it. If I can use the words fun and writing in one sentence. Not always the case for me. I love having written, but writing itself sometimes is not my happy place. But before we get started, I thought I would just give you guys a kind of sense of what we're going to be doing in the next 90 minutes so you know what to expect. Let me see, how many people do we have here all together? We've got quite a few. Personally, I always like to have a little bit of community building time, even though this is a short workshop. So I'm hoping maybe we can just do some really brief introductions, and so I can have a sense of what interested you in this particular workshop, and maybe if you have any background in film. And then I'll do an overview of this notion of writing in pictures and thinking in pictures and showing versus telling, which is pretty much a hallmark thing of film. It's a visual medium. And then we're going to do 3 or 4 exercises depending on how much time we have. So we'll have an opportunity to share a little bit after that. If you want to share what you've written or you want to share how you feel about the exercise we did or what it brought you, we can do that. And then it'll be a wrap, as I say, without the wrap party, and we'll just all fly off. So that's sort of an overview of what we're going to be doing. In terms of intros, I'll just give you a little brief sense of my trajectory to screenwriting. I started out as a fiction writer and went to the Sundance Festival, and it was early on in the Sundance Festival when it was not so star-studded. And so I sat in an audience and I watched this really powerful film by an Italian filmmaker, really personal film, as it turned out. And it was really, I mean, you could just feel it in the audience. It was just so powerful and so moving. And the lights went up and he did the Q&A, and someone said, gee, where did you get the idea for this particular subject matter? And he said it was autobiographical. And this little light went off of me and I thought, wow, how cool is that, to sit in a darkened room with 100 people and have this story that you created and see it on the screen and share this incredible experience versus watching someone read your short story or your novel. And it was a really naive thought because it's a fortune to get a film on the screen. So it was naive on my part, and also naive in the sense that, having had the experience later of having a short film in a festival that was deeply personal, and then having to get up and do a Q&A and feeling how incredibly vulnerable I was kind of a full circle thing. But anyway, I left Sundance and I just really wanted to start writing for the screen, and I did. I took some production classes, and that led me to some work on some feature films, and also a job at a production company where I did some directing, a lot of editing, some producing, some writing, some bad acting. And yeah, that was kind of my trajectory to where I am now. I just really have loved that transition, although I still write fiction. I love that transition from fiction to screenwriting, and it really enriched my writing in every way. So that's a little bit about me. If you don't mind going around just maybe 30 seconds or so, 45 seconds, just introduce yourself and give me a sense of maybe, like I said, what interested you in this, or if you want to take a pass, you can. You don't have to share. It's okay. I know sometimes it's not the most thrilling thing to do, but I'm going to kind of do it according to who I see, where I see. So I'll call on you. So, Karen, your name is so familiar to me.
Indeed, Dory, if you remember me, we met
I
11
do.
years ago.
Yes.
In the International Admission Office. You are the first Chatham representative, to welcome me to the campus. So when I saw your name, I'm just melt my heart. I gotta see you.
Great.
I'm living in Virginia. I'm an alum here. I'm older than everybody else, so don't mind my old English. That's why I come to this workshop to learn about screenwriting. Because after I graduated from Chatham, I still have great interest in writing. My genre when I was as a student was nonfiction. So it's always a shame that I didn't take that opportunity on fiction or screenwriting. There's so many genres to explore until I met Sheila, and then she introduced me to poetry. And then now I'm a big movie fan. So whenever I listen to all these dialogue going on, so reflective, especially last year, COVID, I end up watching movies at home. So I just take that interest as a hobby. And then I would like to attend almost all kinds of screenwriting workshop if I can make time for it. So here I am.
Great.
I hope to learn from everybody.
Great. Thanks, Karen. Mary? I think you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. I came because one of our writers in our writers group suggested that we do something that is not something we normally do, which is screenwriting. And we all agreed that, and Beth is in our group, and Kelly, and one of our other girls didn't make it. She's not feeling well, but we thought we would pursue something we always kept on the back burner, kind of screenwriting. I mean, I think my favorite thing in the world is movies, but for some reason I never really delved into actually undertaking a screenplay. And I've been given those as gifts. I got the script from Elf given to me by my kids one time, and I've gotten scripts from MASH and different ones where I've really gotten the feeling of what it's like to create that, but never took a course in it. So I was a children and young adult literature concentration in my MFA at Chatham. And I've been pretty much sticking to that, children's writing and YA, until just the past few years. I've been sort of moving away from that and wanting to get more into adult women's fiction or literature, and also nonfiction, which is another untapped area for me. And I picked up a copy of Creative Nonfiction, the magazine, the 75 year or the 75 issue anniversary, and I couldn't believe what I'd been missing. So this is just my way of sort of changing it up a little bit and seeing what other things are out there for us to pursue. because a lot of our stories, when we talk about them, we say that we kind of want to think of them as a stage play or a movie, you know, in action, even though it's fiction, even though it's a story that's on the written page. We kind of know that to really intrigue someone, you kind of want it to be almost like a moving picture for them when they're reading it. So that's another reason we're interested in screenwriting.
Okay, great, thank you. Beth.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Again, I'm in writing group with Mary and Kelly. And I think I was intrigued by this when somebody brought it up because, first of all, I have a lot of connections to people who have written for the screen and who are mostly my husband's friends. He's from a very creative group of people, including somebody, Dory, who is a judge every year at Sundance. So anyway, and then when I wrote my thesis at Chatham, and I was in children's writing too, my husband's been suggesting to me for years to write it as a screenplay or as a play, one or the other. And so I've been thinking about that for a long time, haven't really done anything with it. And also the words that you're using, show, don't tell, are pretty much the mantra of children's writing. So I was just in looking forward to hearing your take on that. So that's it.
Great.
Okay.
Like things got moved around a little bit. Madison.
Hi, Madison. I'm in the nonfiction genre of the MFA program at Chatham, and I'm here just to learn about a genre different than the one that I usually write in. I think it's good to challenge myself occasionally to learn about different genres and see how it can relate to and apply to the genre that I work in. So I'm excited to be here.
Great, thank you. Joe.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm sort of a nonfiction and fiction MFA, and so I like to keep my options open. I've always thought screenwriting was very exciting. It's always nice to look at writing in a different medium sort of way. So yeah, I'm very interested in it.
Okay. Thank you. Charla.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I knew I would be technically challenged when it was my turn. Hi, everyone. I'm Charla. I'm an alum. I have written a screenplay before. I really enjoyed it. It was for my screenwriting class. I also taken a film critique class I really loved. I'm genre fluid, let's say. So I'm excited to be here. Just the stars aligned and it seemed to work out for my schedule. So
Great.
thanks for having me.
Welcome.
And thanks to Chatham for offering it.
Thanks. Valentine.
Hi, I'm a fiction writer. I'm a second-year student, and I've always been curious on how screenwriting could positively impact my fiction writing. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Jenith. Okay, maybe Janice's not fully connected. How about Emily?
Hi, Dory. It's nice to meet you. I'm Emily. From my screen. I'm an MFA student at Chatham in my second year. And I don't really know anything about screenwriting. I write poetry primarily, but I'm interested in the visuals that can come from words themselves. And I think that it's really interesting. I want to learn more about it. And I'm looking forward to seeing how I could apply some screenwriting stuff to my poetry.
Thanks. Sorry, I muted myself and I had to do the unmute dance. Victoria.
Hello, I'm Victoria, a second year here at Chatham, and my focus is poetry in the program, although I write in any genre I can think of, because I can't make a decision and I love it all. So I'm especially excited to explore screenwriting, and I've loved movies from the very beginning. They're actually part of why I fell in love with reading, was a love of movies first. So I'm excited to find out how they can all continue fitting together.
Great, thank you. Nicole.
Hi, I am also in my thesis year here at Chatham. I'm actually doing it in 3 years, but screenwriting is, it's kind of funny that I'm here because my thesis work that I'm writing, my novel, was based on a 1-hour TV pilot screenplay I wrote in my undergrad that I knew I was never going to do anything with. So I've kind of seen it coming from the opposite direction, trying to make a screenplay of novel. So I'm really hoping I can find some insight here and kind of help tie it all together.
Okay, hope so. Hope it works for you that way. Kelly?
Hi, I'm Kelly Zappis. I'm another alumni from the children's writing program at Chatham. I'm part of Mary and Beth's writers group, and I just thought it would be fun to learn about a different type of writing. I usually just do sort of straight fiction, so yeah, just curious.
Great, thanks for coming. I want to get your name right, so please tell me your name. Is it Hurina?
It's you, Harina.
You, Hurina. Thanks.
I would guess that basically everything seems to relate to screen time these days, so it's probably a good thing to know a little bit about. That's all I got.
Oh, okay. All right, great, thanks. Jess?
AOA! Graduated in 2020, here for my job because they keep asking me to do video scripts. Don't know what I'm doing.
Short and sweet. Okay, great. I hope this is helpful. James?
Hi. So I was here because I'm actually in a screenwriting course at the moment, and I found that it's a really interesting, like, what's the word? Limitation to put on writing, because it like takes away all of my like ability to be descriptive in terms of the setting and such. I just need to like cut to the chase, basically. I found that really interesting, really enjoyable. So I'd just like to work on more of that.
Okay, thank you. Trey?
It's Trey. Can you hear me?
Great, yes, thanks.
Perfect. I am currently a student here at Chatham. I'm in my senior year, and one of the reasons that I wanted to come here was because for a long time I've had this idea for an animation, and one thing you have to do when you're making an animation is write scripts for your voice actors, and I have no idea how to write scripts, so.
Okay, great, thanks. So we have 2 more people. Dan? Oh.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dan. I'm a fiction writer, Chatham alum, love movies, think they're magical, also like really well-written TV series. I think it's interesting that you can actually chart a movie's success on like Rotten Tomatoes based on how well written it was. I think it's underestimated as a part of the process. Didn't have time to take any screenwriting at Chatham, unfortunately, though I wanted to. My writing partner wants to start working on screenplays with me, so that's why I'm here. Although I think it's interesting, I don't like reading my stories because I feel like part of writing is that one of one movie that you put together for in a reader's mind. But I think that I'm really excited to try to write a screenplay, and it's something I want to do. So that's why I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I think lastly we have Susan. Susan, your name is familiar to me also. Susan Thibodeau?
Yes, that's it, Susan Thibodeau. So I am a fiction writer and an alum, and short and sweet, I think that writing fiction can be enhanced by learning how to actually write screenplays, because some of my most favorite fiction writers have also written or are familiar with the screenwriting form. So I'm hoping this will help.
Great, thank you. Well, so I love you guys because almost all of you love film, and I love film. And I have always loved film, even before I ever thought of writing for it. This workshop certainly comes with a caveat, because I know a few of you said you were interested in learning how to write a screenplay. It's not an intro to screenplay writing workshop, and actually that would be an entire class, but it is more a kind of an examination of this notion of showing versus telling. And I see we have one more person who jumped in. So Joshua, we just did a little round of quick 30-second intro. Do you want to say a little something about what drew you to the class and say hi?
Sure. Hi, everybody. What drew me to the class is that I was very interested in the subject, the idea of, telling stories with pictures and how that translates into telling stories with words. Sounded awesome. So I'm glad to be here. Sorry I'm late. I just had some things to do.
No worries. Thanks for joining us. So I have a couple notes, and if I glance at them once in a while, it's really in your best interest that I do, because I love screenwriting and I don't want to get tangential. We've got like a short amount of time and I want to keep us on track. But, I want to talk a little bit about this notion of showing versus telling. I mean, it would be overstating the obvious to say, you don't listen to a film, you watch a film. It's really all the images, and you should really be able to watch a great film, or a good film even, and turn the sound off, or watch a film in another language that you don't speak, and it should convey the basic themes, and you should understand the storyline, and you should understand the characters and their dilemmas and their conflicts, and you absolutely should feel something. It should convey all of those things, that emotionality. And it's really, writers write the words, and writers write the story, and writers write the description of the setting. And, without the writers, it doesn't happen. But of course, I'm sure you've all, in the course of ever watching Oscars or anything else, hear all the jokes that are bantied about writers just being the scum of the earth and being mistreated. And, it's really, images are really the god of filmmaking. And it's a kind of a fun and a maddening challenge sometimes to put aside our usual way of thinking of storytelling if we're writers, and begin to think just in pictures. It's an opportunity for obviously really beautiful visual metaphors, but it's really being charged with showing the audience and not telling the audience. I'm sure, since you all really have a love of film, you've almost all said that. I'm sure you've been watching a film that you think, wow, I'm so aware of the exposition. It's so uncomfortable. It's so clunky. The character has to tell me that their son is mad at some kid he's going to school with, or their mother is an artist, or it's unwieldy, and it's right away you're getting that sense of, yeah, this is maybe not the greatest film in the world that I'm watching, and maybe I'm going to get another snack or just switch over to something else. I want to ask a question at this point, and I'm thinking you're all pretty savvy, but is there anyone here who is at all sketchy about what a director does? Or has questions about what does a director really do? Valentine, you have that question. Anybody else unsure of that? It's kind of a, okay. It's a distinction I want to make before we move forward, because I think it's important, and especially for those of you who are thinking about writing for the screen. A director is responsible ultimately for every single thing in the frame. So that's every single thing in the frame, including what the costumes. For example, some directors just on a big film will just trust their costume designer and just sign off on whatever their best ideas are. Other directors are very hands-on. Every article of clothing is something they either decided on or collaborated on, but they're very, very involved. But really the director is the one who makes all the decisions about the shots. So I'm going to give you an example. And we're going to work off of this example again in a few minutes a little bit, but we're looking at two people are sitting on some rocks, the Bay Area. They're watching the sun drop in the Pacific, over the Pacific Ocean. And maybe they're talking, maybe they're not, but you write in your script, Will and Sharon sit on the rocks watching the sun drop over the ocean. But what are we seeing? So are we seeing the sun and the backs of their heads? Are we seeing the side of one of their heads and the other face in the frame? So the director is making every single decision about how to shoot the shot to tell the story, every single shot. As a writer, you're not directing. It's kind of a no-no unless you're a writer-director and you're going to direct your own script. So you're never going to put things in your script like extreme close-up of Joe as he watches Dory talk on the Zoom meeting, or the camera pans in, or any of that. You're really not involved in those kind of directorial choices. And I just think it's an important distinction to make about what directors do and what writers do. However, there are lots of sneaky ways that writers like to direct in their scripts by maybe an action that has to happen a certain way, which kind of limits the director's choices or makes the choices really, really obvious. So, we're more focused on actions and behaviors. But what you can't do as a writer, and this is a very cornerstone of what we're going to talk about, and we're talking about showing versus telling. You can't say, Amy was angry. You can't say Amy was angry, but really, what does that mean? When you say Amy was angry, we're a viewer, we're watching a film. What are we looking at? So what is Amy doing? Certainly your actors are actors, but actors love things to do. They love it when you give them actions. They love them when you give them something to actually demonstrate what the emotion is on top of whatever they do as an actor in terms of their body language or their facial expression or their voice. So if we're saying Amy is angry or Amy is sad, what does that mean when we're writing a script? Versus being able to say in maybe a novel, and this is probably a terrible example, something like she felt a crushing amount of sadness. What is she doing? What what can you give her to do? What can you write that makes us see the depth of what she's feeling? I think, you know, probably everyone here has had some image from a film really stay with them because it had so much emotionality. I mean, for me, one of my favorite 30 seconds in a film is in the film American Beauty. If you saw that film, if any of you saw it, it's just simply a piece of paper in the wind. That's a short 20, 30-second video clip of that holds so much emotionality and tells us so much about the person who shot, the character in the story who shot that actual video. So I think when you're thinking about when you're thinking about writing in pictures, you're thinking about always actionable items, always things that show us. And that, you know, I know that Chatham has long had, I know because I recruited students for it for many years, it's been a place-based writing program. So also we're thinking, you know, place as character. And if you've watched especially a lot of television series like maybe The Killing, you know, those moody shots of Oregon, the constant rain, the gray, or perhaps Startup, which is set in Miami, this juxtaposition of little Haiti and versus this glitzy money world versus this touristy people taking their 1-week vacation. It's this sort of faux paradise that they're experiencing. It's places character also. It's showing those things. So, you know, it touches everything from setting to characters, even dialogue. You know, what are your actors doing when they're delivering their lines? Yeah, so I think it's a very simple concept, but it's hard to do. So I'm going to propose, because I'm a doing versus talking about it person, I'm going to just say, let's jump in the deep end and let's just do some writing exercises and see where we land. Just jump in there and start thrashing around. Try to make our way to the side of the pool and hold on. So this first exercise it's kind of kills two birds with one stone for me. And it's about backstory, and backstory is hugely informative when it comes to your characters. You know, there are people who are artists who will draw the faces of their characters and put them up in their room while they're writing. They just really want to drop in. We don't have the luxury like you would have in fiction of being in your character's head. We're not going to walk around in their thoughts. We can't have the internal. Everything has to be external in film. And it's a luxury in fiction to be able to do that. Some people would say, well, what about voiceover? But voiceover is really, you know, I once wrote a very small voiceover narration at the beginning of a film, which I thought was so clever. And I got blasted by someone I really respect. And he said, you know, it's good writing, but it's lazy. And it's tired, you know, in terms of film. And he said, show me. And I thought, how am I going to show this? But you'd be amazed when you're really challenged to show how it stretches you. If you're a fiction writer, if you're a nonfiction writer, it's going to worm its way into your writing in really interesting ways. So the thing about our characters are, you know, and I'm sure this is an old notion to many of you, and some people subscribe to it and some people don't, is this idea that our characters are aspects, all aspects of us. So that's a fascinating thing to me, because I think when you take one aspect of yourself and you completely disconnect it from all of those rational, reasonable parts of yourself that's always tempering that, if you take those away, and maybe that aspect of yourself that could be mean or petty but it is no longer restrained by the higher parts of yourself that edit it. It's really fascinating to see what that character has to say. And it will say things that will surprise you, sometimes about yourself. So I see this exercise as kind of killing two birds with one stone. One, stuff from backstory work, a lot of times will make it into your work, especially with writing exercises like this that kind of drop into a deeper place. And two, it kind of maybe will get out of our system that being in the character's head and that internal thing a little bit, if that makes sense. So this is going to be about 5 or 6 minutes. I'll time it. I'm making it a little not definite in terms of time, because just about when it feels excruciating to me, I'll figure it is for you too, and I'll stop it. But what you're going to do is you're going to put a character in a setting. Okay, if you have a character you're working with now in a piece of fiction, or you can use that character. You can create a new character. If you don't have a character at all, then you can maybe take someone you know really well. And you're going to put them in some setting, and it can be any setting you want. If you want some prompts, it could be a yoga studio, it could be an AA meeting, it could be a restroom in an American Legion hall, it could be a fast food drive-through that they've been sitting in for 15 minutes now while the person ahead of them orders dinner for 40. Anywhere you want to put them, you can put them. But you're just going to free write for this 5 minutes. You're going to go right into their head and just let them tell you whatever it is they have to tell you. I did this exercise once with a character who was a rape victim, and I didn't have a choice about the setting. It was a post office line, but it was pretty fascinating to drop in and just write totally in the first person, totally from inside their head, all the ways in which she was incredibly hyper-vigilant and all the things that she was attending to. And some of those made their way into a script I was working on. So I don't know if that helps you a little bit for setting this up. Yeah, no dialogue. They're not interacting with anyone, no description, just you're in their head, and that's it. Does anybody have any questions about doing this? No? Yes, Mary?
So you're talking about writing in the first person, just from the person's head, like I am here and I am doing, okay.
Exactly. No editing, just let their thoughts come as they come. And if you go blank for a bit, just, you can just write blank, 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 blank until something pops in again. But it totally, no editing, no judgment, just let them talk to you, basically. Okay, you want to go? So, my handy phone timer. I can't promise you it'll be exactly 5 minutes, but it probably will. Okay, let's just start. Okay. So does anybody want to share anything that came up for them in the course of doing that? I mean, whether it's just your feeling about doing it, your experience of doing it, or any little piece of writing. We are really short on time, but it would be great to see how that was. Any volunteers? Was it awful? Was it excruciating? Nicole?
Sure. I mean, I'm not going to necessarily share what I wrote because, as I said, it's rambling, but it was interesting that I started with my character trying to pick out a movie at like Blockbuster or something, and then he ended up like getting into his head about his weight and his physical image. So that was interesting.
Great. Joshua? Joshua, did you want to share? Okay.
No, yeah, kind of. I mean, I'm working on a novel, and it's actually a Holocaust novel, so the setting is pretty extreme. But so my character's there, and things just kind of went from there. I mean, it was a useful exercise. I was trying to put into words what can't be put into words, and that was helpful.
Thanks. Dan?
Yeah, I thought it was cool how you don't just get the objects, you also get obviously the character's lens and perspective of those objects. And I'd be curious to see how those objects could be imbued with that feeling without getting inside the character's head when you're writing for the screen. But it was definitely interesting and forced me to populate the scene in my head with different objects.
Great. Thanks for sharing. You know, another interesting piece of this, even though you're writing in the first person and you may want to do this yourself on your own at another time, is to revisit it or do another version of it, is to begin to pay attention to what's happening for your character in their body. Like if they have some body awareness, how they're feeling. Sometimes that can be a really interesting rabbit hole to go down. And it can, because it's physical, it can lead you to actual actions, physical actions, or physical ways in which they're behaving. Okay, well, we're gonna move along to talking a little bit about dialogue. You know, some people think dialogue is the enemy of screenwriting. I really totally disagree with that, but I was at a Sundance screenwriters panel one time, and they were writer directors, and they said, I purposely write the crappiest dialogue I can so my actors will just improv and I don't have to worry about it. I'm not so on board with that, but I can understand why they were based on their films. But anyway, you know, I was in a writing group with screenwriters and playwrights for a while, and a good friend of mine who's an excellent writer but a playwright decided to write her first script, and she asked me if I would read it, and I turned the page and there was a block of dialogue, and I turned the next page and there was a block of dialogue, and I turned the next page and there was a block of dialogue. And so I said, hey, can I just ask a question? And she said, sure. And it was great. It was really good writing. She's really a great writer. I said, is what we're seeing when we're hearing all this dialogue, your character standing in the floodlights at the edge of the stage talking to the audience? And she was like, oops. I'm a playwright. That's exactly what we're seeing. And I said, well, that's not really going to work. You might want to put some action. So, I mean, again, it's that thing of what's going on in the frame, what's going on the screen. So there's nothing like great dialogue, and people will often walk away from a film and remember that, go ahead, make my day line that sticks with them. What we're going to do now is it's going to have two parts, and it's going to be not a very long exercise. The first part's just going to be 2 minutes, but I am going to give you a prompt because I think it will help since it's so short. You're going to write dialogue for 2 minutes, and that's a very brief amount of time, but it's the setup is just going to be a couple. They're fighting, and they are finally sort of saying what they really think about each other, and it's kind of ugly and kind of hurtful and pretty gritty. I know 2 minutes isn't very long, but because this has two parts and we're a little short for time, I think it's long enough to accomplish what we're going to do. So we're going to spend 2 minutes doing that, and then we'll do part two after that. And do you have any questions about doing this one? No? Okay. Get up my handy phone timer. Make sure it's not even 1 second over 2 minutes. Just kidding. Okay, go ahead and start. We'll do 2 minutes. Okay. So does everybody have at least a little bit of dialogue they can work with for this next part? Anybody who doesn't? Okay. So the second part of this is going to be harder. So you've written these words, you've written this dialogue. What you're going to do now is you're going to flesh that out into a scene. So we'll probably take about 5 minutes to do this, but you can slug this if you want to. And by that, I mean, if you've seen a script, a slug would be interior, night, diner. You can do that if you want to do that, but then you're going to actually show us what they're doing. So you're going to make it more of a scene. You're going to set the setting a little bit, but you're going to have some actionable items. And you don't really have to write this as a scene in screenwriting format. You can really list if you want to, if that's more comfortable. Just what are the things that your actors are doing while they're delivering these lines? Are they, are they sitting? Are they standing? Are they moving? What are some of the actions that they might do that either underscore the tension between these two people and the kind of ugliness of it, or maybe contradicted, which would maybe show some conflict on one character's part who is saying the ugly words, but is still really connected to the person and is just in the heat of the moment. Whatever, I'm just throwing some things out as thoughts for how complex this could be. So let's do this, and then we'll kind of circle back and we'll talk about what this whole little experience has been like for you guys. So you can just go ahead and start whenever you like. Do you have any questions about doing this? Is anyone uncertain? Okay, great. Okay. See you in 5 minutes. Okay. So I'm really curious to hear how some of you found this, if you found it really, really challenging, if you feel like you're maybe starting to think in terms of showing more now instead of telling, if it's helping you kind of move in that direction a little bit. What are some of your thoughts? And you're welcome if you have a particular example of an action that you felt you gave one of the characters that was productive. I'm just curious to hear how this was. Any volunteers?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Oh,
Joe? Oh.
yeah, Joe.
Well, mine started out as a fight about dishes. And at first it was just going to be them yelling back and forth, and then suddenly one of them was throwing dishes, and that wasn't where I was planning on going. And that's just like, well, if they're doing action, then somebody is going to start throwing things. That's because the dialogue, I didn't get very far with them getting into the nitty gritty, angry, rude things that people tend to say. But then I thought, oh, well, the action is where we can get really unforgivable. So yeah, we'll start throwing dishes. That'll be fun.
Anybody else? Yes. Charla.
I assumed you meant me, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, sorry.
I felt like it wasn't so much what was the actions, but the body language I felt was more telling. So that was kind of fun.
Anybody else have anything they want to share? I know it wasn't very much time for dialogue, and one of the tenets of screenwriting is you enter a scene at the last possible minute you could enter it. And it's tempting when you first start writing for the screen to start a scene and have it build into this big thing, but often you'll later look at it and say, oh, I could have just started right here. So I'm sorry I didn't give you too much time for dialogue. I might have given you a little bit more. But anybody else find this useful or informative in any way? Okay. All right. Well, Dan. Dan, where are you? Did you want to share?
Yeah. So with dialogue, because you had said like they were saying nasty things, I got like right to the crux of it, and it was basically just 3 lines of dialogue from 2 different people, and it was like the dam bursting. And then whenever I went back and turned it into a scene, the things that they were doing, it was funny how it like shifted from having nothing to do with the fight and kind of just like almost thumb twiddling, but then it turned into those objects being what the fight became about. So it went kind of the opposite direction. And that was a great way. Like the one person picked up this decoration that the other person cared about, and the person was mad that that person cared so much about that decoration, and it really escalated it and took it to a whole other level and made it very specific. And I think it was a very, very good exercise. I liked it.
Oh, good. Great. I'm glad it was useful for you. Okay, well, I have another exercise for you, and I know that doing our little intro probably set us back a little bit for time, but I'm glad that we did that. Valentine, did you want to share something more, or where are you?
Hi, I'm over here.
Hi.
I just really love this exercise. I didn't want to take up too much time, but as we had like the argument, same as everybody else, this scene sort of developed, and I was very surprised to see what came out, and it was just a very enjoyable exercise.
Good, good, great. Well, my favorite exercise is the next exercise we're going to do. And I had a fourth one that is really, really good to do and really short, but I think I'm going to just tell you about it, and you can do it on your own time if you like. But this next exercise is it's like my favorite, and I offer it to you as a gift because it's been really helpful to me. Whenever especially if I've been away from a project for a little while and I've kind of lost my connection to it emotionally, and I'm trying to get back into writing it. I was a musician most of my life, and so I'm partial to music, but I think music is really so incredibly universal, and it's such an immediate connection to our feelings and the sensory and memory and just so many things. So, a really big goal in when we write, and we write especially settings, we really want to make the character feel something, or the audience feel something. We want to give them something very feeling, very sensory. If you're writing a script about with a theme of abandonment, I can give you an example of a script in which there's just an opening montage, and one of the shots in the montage, it's set in Miami, is a really little girl, maybe 4, sitting in the sand, and she's covered in it, and she's crying, and there's a thunderstorm, and people are hurrying up, and legs are walking by her, and nobody's picking her up. So that pulls in an audience, that feeling of this child in distress, and it's totally underscores that theme of abandonment. And juxtaposed with that is in that montage is a shot of the cabana with a bunch of thrown dirty towels and a bunch of stacked, half empty plastic drink cups. Again, a nice image for conveying something like that, a simple image. So one of the exercises I love to do is to write to music. And so I've put together about 15 minutes of music. Please, you guys, don't hate me. It's not pleasurable music. It's not pleasurable listening. Some of it is music from some film scores. Some is just a weird random piece of music thrown in. But again, we're going to just write. No editing, just free write. Whatever comes to mind. If it's a setting, a scene, a place, it can be peopled with characters. If dialogue comes to you, whatever, and whatever comes up, no editing. Yeah, just write. And if you find the music annoys you, I would encourage you to lean into that feeling of being really annoyed and kind of write that. Make it bigger. Make that feeling bigger and just write that and see what comes up for you that way. But I find that music can be really, really good for accessing things and just pulling at the imaginative and pulling up the sensory, and those things are so important in screenplays. So I'm gonna, hopefully the technology gods and goddesses are gonna smile on me. And I'm just gonna start playing some music, and when the music ends, we'll circle back and we'll talk about how this was for you guys. Wish us luck with the music. Is it gonna go? Is it gonna go? Is it gonna go? It is. Yes.
Dory, I think you need to stay unmuted.
Okay, so how was that for everybody? I know it was a long time. It's about 15 minutes worth of music, and I know it was some weird music, but how did it feel? Anybody want to share? Beth?
So
I think you're muted.
Oh, no, I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
I think you're still muted. There you go.
Okay, there we go. So I found myself tuning the music out.
I think you're still muted.
Really?
No, I can hear you.
Yeah,
I can hear her.
I can hear her.
Okay. I don't know why you can't, Dory. Anyway, I kind of tuned the music out, to tell the truth. But I also wanted to say that, interestingly enough, as a kindergarten and second grade teacher, that was the very first thing. I did the very same thing every year on the very first day of writing.
You know, I'm not hearing any audio. Is it me?
I don't know. Everybody else can hear me.
Oh, hello. Hang on one second.
You still had
I'm
your
really
music
sorry.
on.
There we go. I'm a technological genius. Okay, I'm sorry, whatever you said, do you mind repeating?
Not at all. I was saying I kind of tune the music out because I'm really good at that when I want to, or accidentally, because I was a teacher and I tune things out, very easily when I need to. But at the same time, it was really good for me because that's actually what I did with my students every year. The very first day that we had free writing, I played music and told them to write. And they looked at me like I was crazy, but they did really, really well with it every year. So I was interested that you picked the same thing that I did with my 5 and 8-year-olds. But
great minds.
Yeah, I think it's a great exercise. I think it was just a little too quiet for me to not tune it out when I got into my writing. So
okay.
I kept trying to listen and think, is this going to help me? But it didn't so much. So I just kept typing. So
okay.
Anyway, thanks.
Thank you.
It was fun. It was fun.
Good. Anybody else? No?
Well, I can say that I love doing exercises like this because it always leads me in such a weird direction. When the music changed to the part that kind of sounded like footsteps, I ended up having my character go down or being taken down some steps instead of just behind a curtain I thought I was going to do. So that really kind of changed the whole trajectory of what I ended up writing.
Oh, interesting. Anybody else want to share anything?
Yeah, the one song, as it was, I found it really annoying, and but that was good because I put my characters in a very annoyed and almost frantic state, and it kept building as the song was building, and I just found myself typing faster and faster, and it was really cool, not just how it affected the what was happening in the scene, but also how it was affecting me and the pace at which I was writing. So that was cool.
Great. Good. Well, one last chance for anybody else if they want to share anything related to that. Okay, well, I see we're coming to the close of our time, and I did have another writing exercise for you. I'm going to tell you about it really briefly. It's very quick, but it's really helpful when it comes to showing and not telling, and that is to just write a scene with no characters, just a scene of a place that defines the character who would normally inhabit it. So it could be a work cubicle, an apartment, a boat, a car, and show everything that would tell us something about that character. That's a really great exercise to do. And so it's a wrap. We're going to fly off. And I really appreciate you guys spending the time with me. It was really fun, and I hope it just finds its way into your writing in some good ways. I hope you got some things from it that are useful to you. I'm happy to be a resource. I'm going to put my email in the chat right now, and if any of you, have questions or anything else, just feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to connect. Okay. So there's my email. Feel free to use it if I can type it without typos. There we go. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Dory.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Dory. Sheila
Thank
also
you.
says thanks. She had to step out to pick up her daughter, but I just want to thank everyone for making the time to be here, and especially thank you, Dory. It's really good to see you and
too, Jeff.
hear from you, and I'm just happy that everyone could come out and get some writing done with you. Some screenwriting, and yeah, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.